Anyone who has spent even a few moments on the internet has likely come across tales of the infamous mega-sized shark known as the megalodon. While many believe it to be the most terrifying underwater beast to have ever existed, that might not be entirely true. So, grab your scuba gear because we're about to dive deep into the ocean's darkest depths. These are sea monsters that are 100 times more dangerous than the megalodon. Number 20. Shanosaurus. Now, here's one of many creatures that I am going to talk about that fall under the category of not what you're expecting, because the Shanosaurus was indeed a massive creature that lived a very long time ago. It is said to have lived over 230 million years ago. In fact, its length was over 15 meters at times, and it had a substantial body weight. Just its skull was said to be about 3 meters long. So, you would think that such a creature would have massive teeth and would be chowing down on everything in sight, right? Well, it actually had some incredibly small and juvenile teeth, which has led many to believe that it only ate soft-bodied creatures. That's a stark contrast to the megalodon, which basically ate everything in sight, once again proving that you can't judge a book by its cover or a creature by the size of its body. Number 19. The Leviathan. Now, we're going there, and for good reason. While the name Leviathan is a reference to many things, not the least of which are massive beasts of myth and religion that were said to have been so powerful that it was truly insane to behold, there was actually a creature named the Leviathan that was so big and strong it might as well have been the only true foe for the megalodon. The irony of all of it is that the Leviathan was a whale. That's right. It's the biggest prehistoric whale to have ever lived, and it was a mean beast to battle with. In terms of size, based on fossils of the beast that were found, the Leviathan was said to be over 15 meters long. That would easily put it in the size range of the megalodon. But just as important, the weight of the whale was almost identical to that of a shark. So, in some ways, these two behemoths colliding would have been like a version of Godzilla versus Kong, two very different monsters going at it for true dominance in the waters. The twist is that this may have actually happened. Fossil records on both creatures are incomplete, but the belief is that they both existed in the same time period, about 13 million years ago. If true, then these beasts might have clashed. How did it go if they did? Well, it's hard to say, but it's also been stated that things likely would not have gone down on the regular. Given their size and aggression, sometimes you just don't pick a fight with the other big guy in the yard. And to back up that statement that it could take on the megalodon, the Leviathan had the biggest teeth of any prehistoric creature, and in those waters, size definitely mattered. We'll never know how far these two went in their scraps, but it is a debate that will keep many talking for quite some time. Number 18. Predator X. Now, unfortunately, I am not talking about the Predator, the mighty alien warrior who almost killed Arnold Schwarzenegger. Today, I'm going to be focusing on something a lot more prehistoric that comes out of the ocean. Apparently, there was once an aquatic prehistoric creature known as Predator X, but it was much more commonly known as the Pliosaurus. I'm pretty sure you know exactly which name was better, right? That's what I thought. But while its name isn't impressive, almost everything else about it was. The Pliosaurus was a monster. Its bite force was apparently 4 times as much as the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which also meant that it could have crushed a 4x4 truck. Its 4 flippers could make it soar through the water at 5 meters per second, and it also had an impressive size, as it was allegedly 13 meters long. For the record, I think the Predator could have taken on the Megalodon simply because it had a nuke, just saying. Number 17. Mysterious creature on the beach. A massive and terrifying creature has washed up on the shores of Cannon Beach, Oregon, sending shockwaves through the scientific community. Identified as a previously unknown species of octopus, this gargantuan creature stretches over 50 feet long, with tentacles lined with razor-sharp hooks and a head the size of a small car. Researchers from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service were the first on the scene and have called this discovery unlike anything seen before in marine biology. What makes this octopus even more alarming is its sheer size and predatory features. Unlike typical deep-sea octopuses, this creature appears to have evolved for aggression, with strong evidence suggesting it could hunt large prey, potentially even sharks. Some experts have gone as far as to claim that this octopus, if still alive in deep waters, could rival the infamous megalodon in terms of terror. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has confirmed they are conducting further studies, but conspiracy theories are already running rampant. Could this be a surviving remnant of a prehistoric species? Or perhaps a new predator adapting to our warming oceans? For now, the creature's discovery raises more questions than answers, and reminds us of the terrifying mysteries lurking beneath the waves. Number 16. Liopleurodon. Here's a creature that some of you may have heard about in the past, as the Liopleurodon was a very impressive beast in the waters during the Jurassic period of life. Ironically, though, it's not actually a sea creature despite it being in the water all the time. It's a kind of reptile, and to prove that, these creatures didn't have any gills, and yet they survived in the water just fine. Now, in terms of size, it does measure up to the megalodon in one way but not in another. In terms of its length, the creature could get to about 7 meters, but some do feel that 10 meters was also actually a possibility. Furthermore, it's a bit shorter than the megalodon, but not all megalodons were 20-ish meters. The megalodon was said to be 50,000 kilograms, whereas the Liopleurodon was, at best, around 1,700 kilograms. And that is quite the big difference, I would say. Even still, they were thought to be at the top of the food chain in their time. One of the reasons for this was their flippers. They were all-powerful swimmers, with the flippers giving them impressive acceleration. So, when you have a predator that can get to you rather quickly, well, that means it's going to eat quite well. Furthermore, it's said that the creature also had an impressive sense of smell that would rival most other sharks, as it could pick up the scent of prey even if that food source was not immediately in visual range. It also had a large set of teeth that were quite a few centimeters long. So, when you add a mouth of that power, those jaws, and that ability to track prey no matter where they are, well, that becomes one scary beast right there. Number 15. Anomalocaris. Now, I'm just going to say this right here and right now, this is scarier than the megalodon. And sure, it totally couldn't have taken one on in a fight, but that doesn't really matter. What does matter is that this is a freaky-looking creature, and we want no part of it. Now, believe it or not, this creature is actually an ancient shrimp, albeit one that was about 2 meters long, and it was much more aggressive than any shrimp that you may know. For example, the Anomalocaris had extremely sharp vision. The presumed undulating swimming motion made it a fast swimmer, and once it caught up to its prey, the creature could grab it using front limbs equipped with sharp spikes on each segment. This combination of excellent vision, speed, and spiky front arms would have made it the most formidable predator. A predator shrimp, mind you. And again, no thank you. Number 14. The Eurypterids. Here's another one whose name, again, I have probably mispronounced and mangled, and it's another one that we know that we can't match up to in terms of the megalodon. However, many scientists are pretty high on these creatures, so we're just going to roll with it. These were amongst the largest and most fearsome of marine predators of the Paleozoic, or so people would say. I'm not really sure how that works when the largest of them was barely 2 meters long, and many of them were only 10 centimeters. And if you're thinking, wow, they look like ancient scorpions, well, you would be right on that. They are arthropods, and they are related to scorpions and other arachnids, which, if you know us at all, instantly puts them into our we hate it list because I hate even anything that's closely related to those creatures. Megalodon, well, if you had a chance to eat up any of these things, I would appreciate it. Number 13. Xiphactinus. Now, not surprisingly, we're going to start off talking about a fish that existed in prehistoric times. The Xiphactinus was one of the largest bony fish of the late Cretaceous era, and is considered one of the most fierce creatures in the sea. In terms of its size, this bony fish could not compare to the megalodon. The massive shark was allegedly 20 meters in length at max, though some think that it may have been over 25 meters. It is still pretty big, but it's not exactly king shark level. So why is the creature allegedly more scary than the megalodon? Well, it's because it's ugly. I mean, seriously, it had a look that only its mother could love, and that's only true if its mother was blind. Some have even stated that it kind of looked like a bulldog more than a fish. It also never had a problem going after species much larger than it was if it meant getting a meal, to the extent that some fossil records will show that the creature might have actually choked on meals that were much too large for it to handle. Now, that's dedication, but it's also stupid, and I digress. Now, yes, I do acknowledge that on certain levels, the fish doesn't compare to the megalodon, but you also have to remember that when people talk about the megalodon, they talk about it as though it's the end-all be-all of the ancient waters. But it wasn't. There were creatures that could match its size, and there are even creatures of the modern world that some people would argue are more scary than this ancient beast. Now sure, not all of these entries will meet that criteria, but there's definitely more than meets the eye with some of these aquatic entities. Number 12. Mosasaurus. If you want proof that there was an ancient sea beast that was, at least in principle, scarier than the megalodon, well, I present to you the Mosasaurus. Many of you are likely very familiar with this beast, depending on your movie knowledge, because this was one of those creatures that would be the highlight of the Jurassic World film. The first one, not the terrible 2 follow-ups. I mean, seriously, how did that franchise follow the same quality pattern 2 different times? Anyways, this was indeed a massive sea creature that lived in the Mesozoic period of history, and more specifically, the late Cretaceous era from about 70 to 66 million years ago. Fossils of this mammoth creature state that it was, at minimum, about 12 meters long, but there are some estimates that say it could grow to over 17 meters. If that is true, then this would put it within the size range of the megalodon. And just like that shark, the Mosasaurus was a very aggressive predator that was not afraid to chomp down on any meal that it came across in its path. The Mosasaurus had a massive head with big jaws, and those large jaws had 40 to 50 massive teeth that were long and sharp with 2 opposite cutting edges. The jaw of the Mosasaurus was double-hinged, which would allow it to open its mouth much wider than it should in order to swallow its prey whole. So yes, they definitely have that scary factor down pat. Mosasaurus were most likely the most dominant predator species that had lived during the period, and these beasts would have definitely pretty much eaten any kind of prey they could find. Given their large size, that's not unlike the megalodon, which had to eat quite a bit to stay alive. There is a lot of debate about whether these two creatures existed in the same time period, but if they did, they likely clashed when they saw each other. Number 11. Deinosuchus. Now, given how evolution works, it is quite unsurprising that there have been creatures from the past that would continue on into the creatures that we have in the world today. And one of them was the Deinosuchus. What is this beast? Well, it's one of the ancestors of the crocodile and alligator that we see today. As with many creatures of the prehistoric era, there are plenty of debates about how big this thing actually was. Original estimates had it at over 16 meters, while others had it at about 11. Either way, that's much more than the standard alligators and crocs of today. The saltwater crocodile is the biggest of the bunch, and it barely gets above 6 meters at times. Now, they weren't afraid to go up against creatures both on land and in the water and apparently scrapped with all sorts of dinosaurs. Plus, like their descendants, they were opportunistic creatures, which had made them very cunning and deadly in their own right. Now sure, they would have lost a fight with the megalodon, but it was also a creature that could easily avoid the shark simply by not being in the water with them. Sometimes, it is the little things that can make the biggest difference. Number 10. Helicoprion. Now, what does it mean to be scary? That's something that varies depending on whom you talk to about it, but pretty much everyone would agree that if they saw a creature that looked like it had a buzzsaw for a mouth, well, that would be really freaky. And guess what? That creature actually existed, and it was called the Helicoprion. Yes, it is real, and no, scientists have no idea how the heck a creature like this came to be. To be clear, the tooth whorls, as they are called, are not able to move like an actual buzzsaw, but the fact that it's shaped like one in the first place is just enough to give people pause. Plus, since it can't spin in place, how was it used to potentially prey on creatures? Well, they still disagree on that. Some believe that each tooth had a different function depending on its position in the tooth whorl. Anterior teeth hooked and dragged prey into its mouth, the middle teeth pierced and cut the prey, while the posterior teeth cut and pushed the prey into its oral cavity. If that is true, it is disgusting. But since it's not alive anymore, we may never know for certain. What we can say is that the megalodon had nothing like this, and we should all be grateful for that. Number 9. Kronosaurus. Here's another creature that was known for how fast it could move in the waters, which made it very dangerous. The Kronosaurus would have hunted large fish, invertebrates such as giant squid and ammonites, and perhaps even other large reptiles, which all have crazy prehistoric names that I am not about to attempt to pronounce. Now, to be fair, their size was not anything to write home about. They were only about 2.4 meters in length, and they were stated at one time to be about 6 times that, but that was yet another exaggeration of what the fossils were stating about the creature. So yes, maybe it would not have measured up to the megalodon in any kind of meaningful way, but the way that people talked about how it would fly through the waters is interesting, as I'm sure the king shark wasn't that graceful in the water. Number 8. The giant squid. It's taken a while to get here, but we're going to dive into the modern waters of our world to talk about a creature that many would agree is much scarier than the megalodon, simply from a physical standpoint as well as a dread standpoint. In terms of length, the giant squid stands out mainly because it was over 13 meters long, with its females being the true giants. The tentacles of the squid do make up most of its height, but that's part of what makes it so terrifying to people. In fact, it is much scarier than they may realize because the giant squid will literally shoot out their feeding tentacles so that they can catch prey over 9 meters away from their main body. The ends of these tentacles have suckers that attach themselves to the prey, and then they'll slowly draw them in so that they can reach the body and be eaten. Oh, and if you don't know, squids have beaks, and that is scary in its own right. They'll use these beaks to take out large chunks of their prey until they're all digested. But why would some people think that a giant squid is scarier than the megalodon? Well, these are deep-sea creatures, so people don't exactly see them all that often, and to that end, that could make them even bigger than we think they are. Furthermore, the legends of these squids were what helped to make the Kraken legend popular, and some still think that the Kraken exists and that the thing could definitely scrap with the megalodon today. Number 7. Sarcosuchus. Here, we will be talking about some more relatives of the crocodile and the alligator, and we have another large specimen for you in the form of the Sarcosuchus. First off, these were huge creatures. Some of them could even get up to about 9.5 meters in length, and that would put them on par with not only many of the sea creatures of the time but many land dinosaurs. In fact, some have even labeled the Sarcosuchus as the dinosaur-killing croc. Although technically, it's not a croc, it's actually an ancestor of the crocodilian, but that's another matter entirely. Unlike modern crocodiles, Sarcosuchus had a much more elongated snout, which suggests that it primarily fed on fish, but it was likely an opportunistic predator capable of ambushing anything that got too close. Its jaw structure indicates that it had an immense bite force, potentially rivaling that of the Tyrannosaurus rex. Fossil evidence shows that its armored body was covered in thick osteoderms, or bony plates, making it a near-indestructible force in the prehistoric waters. Some studies even suggest that it could have spent more time in deep water than modern crocodiles, using its powerful tail to propel itself after prey. Given its sheer size and strength, it's easy to imagine Sarcosuchus lying in wait for unsuspecting dinosaurs that came too close to the water's edge, delivering a crushing attack before dragging them under. There has been plenty of debate about what the Sarcosuchus ate and how it would take on predators, and it was once even believed that they could do the death roll technique that many modern crocodiles and gators will do. However, that has since been debunked. But if this thing could truly take on a dinosaur and win, well, that is a truly scary thought indeed. Number 6. Basilosaurus. The next entry is interesting for multiple reasons, not the least of which is that the Basilosaurus is known as king lizard in certain circles. But one thing that really stands out is when it existed. It was dominating the ancient waters of the world when the dinosaurs had gone extinct. That's right, so that meant that it would have been in the waters after the megalodon and others had died out, and before mammals and other creatures started to fill up the new earth. Oh, and guess what? It's also another whale. That's right, whales were actually scary back then. Unlike modern whales, Basilosaurus had a long, eel-like body, which likely made it an agile and deadly predator. Its massive jaws were filled with sharp, serrated teeth, meaning it wasn't just filtering plankton like today's whales. It was hunting large prey, including sharks and other marine mammals. Fossil evidence even suggests it had small, almost useless hind limbs, a remnant of its terrestrial ancestors, making it a fascinating transitional species. With its powerful bite and elongated body, some scientists believe it may have hunted in packs, much like modern orcas, making it an even more fearsome predator. Its dominance in the ocean likely shaped marine ecosystems before larger, more modern whales eventually took over as the kings of the sea. Plus, it was actually bigger than the megalodon at its peak because it is said to have been over 20 meters in length at times. So, it may not have been as heavy as the megalodon, but that likely would not have bothered it. And we can file this one under the what-if category of matchups because who knows what would have happened if these two had existed at the same time. Number 5. The Tully monster. If it is not evident by now, the ancient world was not exactly afraid to go against the norm and create something that just defies belief, and we've got another example of that right here with the Tully monster. One first look at this thing, and can you even tell what it is? Because I absolutely can't, and apparently neither could the scientists that tried to research it. They had an ongoing debate about whether the thing was a vertebrate or an invertebrate, and 70 years later, they finally determined that the creature apparently didn't have any bones at all. Adding to the confusion, the Tully monster had a bizarre tubular body with stalk-like eyes positioned on the sides of its head, giving it a truly alien appearance. Even stranger, it had a long, flexible appendage extending from its head that ended in a claw-like structure lined with teeth, which scientists assume it used to grab prey. Fossil evidence suggests it lived in murky, shallow waters, where it likely ambushed small fish and other sea creatures. Some researchers have even speculated that it had the ability to change colors, similar to modern cuttlefish, to blend in with its surroundings. Despite all these findings, its exact classification remains one of paleontology's greatest mysteries, making it one of the most puzzling creatures in prehistoric history. Even with all of that figured out, a lot of people still don't know what the Tully monster actually is in terms of a life form. And when you go decades without truly being identified, well, that's an absolutely terrifying thing. Number 4. Dunkleosteus. Here's another example of changing the perception of what it means to be scary. Why? Because the Dunkleosteus is a creature that had one heck of a bite force, which is already impressive when comparing it to the megalodon. But the other reason it's talked about so much is that this was quite literally an armored fish. Specifically, it was armored up around its head, which only added to its bite power. Some estimates suggest that its bite force could exceed 8,000 pounds per square inch, meaning it could crush through bone and shell with ease. Unlike modern sharks, which continuously replace their teeth, Dunkleosteus had self-sharpening bony plates that acted like a built-in guillotine. Fossilized remains even indicate that it could open its mouth in just 1/50th of a second, creating a vacuum powerful enough to suck prey straight in. It likely dominated prehistoric waters as one of the first apex predators, capable of hunting almost anything that crossed its path. Despite its formidable weaponry, Scientists believe that it may have also resorted to cannibalism, as evidence of bite marks on other Dunkleistos fossils suggests brutal battles between these armored titans. But no, it did not have any sharp teeth. Instead, the armor made blades that it would use to bite down on its prey with an incredible amount of force. Ironically, it is these armor plates that survived via fossilization, so other aspects of the fish have actually been lost to history. Could you just imagine if the megalodon had armor plating? Actually, let's not do that and just simply move on. Number 3. Tanystropheus. When your nickname is the long-necked Triassic weirdo, well, you know there's something very different going on with you, and that's exactly what this creature is. In many ways, it's one that was so odd upon discovery that they originally thought that the sea creature could actually fly. However, instead, it's a long-necked sea creature that is, well, still pretty odd. For example, why did it need such a long neck? Nobody honestly knows. Some scientists speculate that it may have used its long neck to ambush prey from a hidden position, striking before its target could react. Others argue that the elongated neck allowed it to hunt in shallow waters, while keeping the rest of its body concealed beneath the surface. Its bizarre proportions have also led to theories that it may have spent time on land, using its stiff neck to snatch unsuspecting prey from the water's edge. However, its limb structure suggests that it wasn't particularly agile on land either, making its overall lifestyle an ongoing mystery. Fossil evidence even hints that Tanystropheus may have been a slow-moving but strategic predator, relying more on patience than speed. And to add to the mystery, despite being a very large sea creature, it apparently was really terrible at swimming. That led scientists to believe that it would use its neck for swift strikes to get its prey. And, I mean, whatever works for you, my friend. Number 2. The blue whale. Now, some of you might be hearing record-scratching noises in your head right now. After all, I'm saying that the blue whale, arguably one of the most gentle animals in the history of the world, is much scarier than the megalodon. Maybe I'm high. Well, it's all about maintaining a certain point of view, really. Specifically, while the blue whale did not exist in the time of the megalodon, I do truly feel that this creature would have given the massive shark some pause. Based on the top-end estimates of the creature, the blue whale is nearly twice the length of your average megalodon from the period and easily 4 times as heavy. So yeah, they are a very big whale, and we already talked about one whale that was basically 1-to-1 with the megalodon and how the shark would have had problems with that. Another thing to note here is that blue whales travel in pods more times than not, and sometimes they can even have 60 of their family with them. So then, just imagine a singular megalodon coming upon a batch of that many blue whales. It might smell food, but it would be sensing a bit of a problem in trying to get them without hurting itself. Just because blue whales are known to be kind does not mean that they won't get rough when the time comes to defend their own. Number 1. Spinosaurus. Here's a creature that was traced back to Africa during its prehistoric period. You might recognize the Spinosaurus from a certain property, but I'm not going to talk about it here, mainly because the creature is now believed to have lived a semi-aquatic life. There have been many theories about this creature over the years, but the reason for that inconsistency was that the fossil record for it was very much incomplete. Once the picture began to become filled in, well, the more we realized how interesting it actually was. Scientists now believe that Spinosaurus had adaptations similar to modern crocodiles, including dense bones that would have helped it stay submerged while hunting. Some studies suggest it had a paddle-like tail, making it a powerful swimmer capable of chasing down fish with surprising agility. It also had long, conical teeth, which were perfect for gripping slippery prey rather than slicing through flesh like a T-Rex. Evidence shows that it likely spent more time in the water than any other large dinosaur, making it a true anomaly among its kind. Some researchers even argue that Spinosaurus was more dangerous in its environment than a megalodon would have been in the ocean. For example, true to its semi-aquatic life, it ate things both on the land and in the water, which included taking on other dinosaurs. And as far as its size goes, well, it was the biggest carnivorous dinosaur on record because it could be over 14 meters long. And that, my friends, is one large creature. Which of these incredible creatures fascinates you the most? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video with more thrilling discoveries from the depths of history.